Welcome everyone to this OIV Symposium on the digital transformation of the wine and wine sector. So this session, as you can see, is dedicated to the presentation of the first OIV report on digitalization, which has been realized with the support of our IT partner company, Minsaid. Now, before showing you the main findings of the study, let me give you a bit of a context on why the OIV decided to develop this report and what is the objective of the event today. So for those who are not familiar with our organization, the OIV is an intergovernmental organization of technical and scientific nature composed of 48 member states and exclusively dedicated to the wine and wine sector. The OIV covers several functions and carries out different activities that are all inspired by our strategic plan that is renewed every 5 years. Now, for the period 2020-2024, one of the 6 axes that composes the strategic plan is on facilitating the digital transition of the sector. In this context, we decided to develop and implement a 3-year plan based on different pillars. One of these pillars is about setting up a digital transformation observatory. The mandate of this observatory is monitoring, analyzing, and disseminating relevant information on the main trends and digital innovation applicable to the wine and wine sector. And the first output of this observatory is the report that I'm here to present today. So sorry for this long introduction, but I think it's always good to put things into context. Now, the report aims at providing a general overview of the status quo of the digitalization of the sector today, as well as some insights on possible developments in the near future. So in terms of methodology, the report was developed by analyzing the results of a survey that was sent to all the member states back in July. And this was based on 8 questions that I will show you in a second. And by carrying out a series of in-depth interviews with a pool of experts that lead to the identification of 9 main technologies that appear to be particularly relevant for the sector. So let's first have a look at the main results obtained via the survey. Please note that these results reflect the personal opinions of respondents and are not to be taken as in any way as an official position of our member states. So, with respect to the other agro sectors, the adoption of digital technologies, according to the respondents of our surveys in the wine and wine sector, is considered as average by the majority. However, more than 2/3 of the respondents acknowledge that the impact of digitalization on the sector in the next years will be highly to extremely relevant. Moving on. If we divided in 3 main stages, the value chain, which I know is a bit simplistic, but vineyard and grain production, winery and the processing phase, and trade and distribution, well, it will be the latter stage that is currently the most digitalized, according to our survey, as well as the one where higher benefits are expected in the near future. Now, as expected, the main fields that are anticipated to be impacted the most by the digital transformation of the sector are the increased availability of data and therefore an improved data collection, as well as improved traceability. Now, in these slides, we grouped 3 charts that show the degree of development of selected technologies in the upper left corner. Then the existence of public initiatives in terms of schemes or support programs, etc., in the lower left part of the slide, and what technologies should be considered as priorities for the digital transition of the sector. In this case, we can see some kind of consensus on the fact that those technologies that are more developed are also the ones receiving more public support and in general are considered as a high priority by the respondents. A good example of this is provided by e-labeling and e-certificates, for example. The only exception to this is blockchain. As it is the only technology that is not considered highly developed. It does not receive much public support, but still it is considered as a very high priority with the respondents, probably due to its very high potential, as we will soon see in a few slides. Now, let's move now to the section of the report where a pool of experts with different backgrounds and technologies and nationalities have been interviewed. As I said before, this exercise led us identifying 9 main trends or technologies that are bringing digital innovation to the sector, or will do so in the near future. As you will see, not all of them are at the same maturity level. Some are more disruptive than others, and they can apply to one or more stages of the value chain. Now, due to a time constraint, I cannot go into details, but I will briefly explain each of them. And in the sessions that follow, this technology will be focused on more in depth. So let's start with the Internet of Things. So IoT is defined as a network of physical objects that incorporate sensors, softwares, or other technologies in order to connect and exchange data and information with other devices or systems over the internet. Now, as you can see from this little section here, IoT can be applied to all stages of the value chain. In terms of applicability to the wine and wine sector, sensors are extremely useful for a number of tasks. Here we mention a few, for example, monitoring soil and water conditions in the vineyard, weather forecasting, temperature control, for example, during the winemaking process. So all this data combined can generate precious information for mitigating risks and improve the overall decision-making in vitiviniculture. Moving on, we have artificial intelligence. Although this is not exactly a technology, it is more like a branch of computer science. Artificial intelligence is about developing algorithms that can allow machines to perform complicated tasks that would typically require human intelligence. Artificial intelligence is mainly used in combinations with the sensors data, as in the case, for example, of crop monitoring and management, or for the monitoring of the wine production process. But it has many more applications. Later on in this symposium, we will see, for example, how artificial intelligence can be used to reduce subjectivity in wine reviews. Another interesting trend to monitor is the evolution of robotics, especially when applied to operations in the vineyards, such as fertilizing or harvesting, as well as in the management of inventories. So one of the main obstacles for its adoption, as you can see from the quote by Dr. Streber, it's the high cost and the energy inefficiency. But according to the experts, the latest advancements of recent years will make this technology more viable within the next 3 to 5 years. Big advances have been made also in the geographic information system and in satellite imagery. So something that is particularly interesting for their applications to the vineyard. The range of applications in this sense is quite broad, and here we can see some examples, such as analyzing the state of the vineyard or developing predictive models based on artificial intelligence and in combination with sensors. Next, we have LIDAR, which stands for Laser Imaging Detection and Ranging. This is a remote sensing method that allows a precise mapping of the structure of the vineyard in 3D, in 3 dimensions. So this technology is particularly interesting for example, precision viticulture operation, especially when robots are involved. Now, as I said before, one of the technology with probably the highest potential for the wine sector, but probably also for the economy overall, is blockchain. Now, there are many reasons why the wine sector should closely monitor the development of the blockchain technology. As I'm sure you all know, blockchain has some very interesting key aspects, such as the distributed trust, the single source of truth, immutability, and the possibility of implementing smart contracts. Now, by definition, blockchain applies well when there are many parties involved with different interests or a general lack of trust, and there is a need of sharing a common data ledger. And guess what? The wine sector has all these characteristics. And in addition, it has certain specific features that make it an extremely interesting field of application. Because it is a market, for example, with a relatively high rate of fraud and counterfeiting. It is a market where concepts such as provenance, authenticity, or sustainability are very important. It is a highly fragmented sector with myriads of SMEs. It has outdated and complex record keeping in many cases, as well as incomplete traceability all along the supply chain. Now, in the roundtable that will take place in the second half of this symposium, blockchain will be one of the main topics of discussion. So please stay connected if you want to hear more about its potential and its applications. Another interesting technology that applies well to one sector is electronic labeling. So also in this case, these topics will be discussed in depth during the roundtable that will come next. So I won't spend much time on this. Some of the main benefits of these technologies are quite evident and include greater transparency for consumers, increased security against fraud, as well as an overall improved traceability. Now, still in the domain of the dematerialization of documents and information, we have e-certificates. This is a good example of a tool that is quite simple to implement and that can have a major impact in terms, for example, of facilitating international trade procedures and simplifying controls at the borders. At UAV, we currently have a working group within the Economics and Law Commission, coordinated by the Brazilian delegate Glauco Bertoldo, and they are trying to develop a model that could meet the needs of our sector. Now, the last technology that is included in the report is smart storing, which is about applying robotics to warehouses to improve inventory management and operations in logistics. This technology is widely used in other sectors, but I think that there is a good potential also for the distribution stage of the value chain of wine as well. Finally, we interviewed some experts on two topics that are not linked to one specific technology. So on the left-hand side of the slide, we have the smart vineyards, which is basically the combined application of some of the technologies that we saw before, such as sensors, satellite images, or drones. The one-to-one interview that will follow my presentation will be entirely focused on this topic, so I won't enter into details now. While on the right-hand side, we summarized some of the applications and benefits of digitalizations for what concerns environmental sustainability. This can be particularly interesting when, for example, digital tools are applied to precision viticulture, just to mention an example. So to wrap up, this report offers a good overview of what is the status quo and the main trends of digitalization in our sector. Although many see the wine and wine sector as very conservative and linked to tradition, it is clear that we live in a world that is becoming more and more data-driven, and at UAV, we think that the wine and wine world is no exception. Digitalization offers great opportunities in terms of efficiency, productivity, transparency, sustainability. However, at the same time, we have seen how the degree of adoption of digital technologies is still quite low. And for a number of reasons, such as the high implementation costs, the lack of support from the public, low commitment or unawareness, especially for what concerns small producers, or the lack of international standards. So I hope that the work we have started within the UAV will help reducing at least some of these barriers. So I conclude here my presentation.